details. I will focus on natural language processing for emotion analysis. So emotion analysis is my field of expertise. I'm a second year PhD student under the supervision of Alain Finkel and Lynn Allier, and also Patrick Paroubek, which is a research engineer at Listen. So today we will ask several questions. So what is emotion analysis? Here I will present the different emotion annotation scheme and tasks that we found in this field. Then where is emotion analysis going? What are the current limitations and challenges? Then how to improve emotion analysis, and here I will focus on prompting methods. So who heard about prompting methods? Okay, so when you talk to a language model, when you talk to ChatGPT, for example, you write a natural language sentence, and this is a prompt, basically. So I will introduce some methods, some good methods on how to properly talk to language models, and this might be useful for you because, for example, for your research, you may use language models, and you will need to talk to them properly. And finally, I will give a guide on how to create a prompt step by step, and I will give an example on how to create a prompt for the emotional domain. So what is emotion analysis? So emotion analysis is incorporated into a huge task in natural language processing, which is sentiment analysis. And in this task, we have in this field, we have a basic task, which is polarity detection, and the goal is to categorize text into two sentiments, positive or negative. Sometimes there is also a third sentiment, neutral. So this is often based on a sentence or a document, and this is a very simple task. But you have a more fine-grained task, which is aspect-based sentiment analysis, and the goal is to analyze sentiments associated with specific aspects of an object. So here we would have a positive sentiment towards design, but a negative sentiment towards heat management. And this kind of task is used mostly for a marketing purpose. So for example, you want to analyze emotion towards a specific aspect of your product. And we have emotion analysis. So in emotion analysis, we have a lot of tasks, but here are the most used one. We have discrete emotion analysis, and the goal is to classify text into discrete states. So for example, joy, sadness, anger, fear, and so on. And these discrete states often comes from psychological theories, such as Ekman model of emotion or Plutchik model of emotion. You may heard about them. We have also event-focused analysis, and this kind of analysis considers that an emotion arises when we evaluate an event. So an emotion is caused by an event. So the goal of this kind of analysis is to automatically identify events, and all events are related to discrete states. So here we would have anger towards the event of flight delay. And finally, we have a more fine-grained task, which is structure emotion analysis, and the goal is to answer to the question who feels what towards whom and why. And we will need to automatically identify emotion semantic roles, such as experiencer, emotion target, emotion cause. But I would say that we need some psychological theories to clarify what are the objects we want to detect in text. So for example, what is really an emotion target? What is really an emotion cause? So in psychology, especially in psychological theories of emotion, we have a different tradition. We have the subjective feeling tradition, the motivational tradition, and also the cognitive tradition. And here I will focus on the cognitive tradition. So we have what we call appraisal theories, and appraisal theories consider that an emotion arises when we evaluate an event according to several cognitive dimensions. So here is one example of an appraisal theory. This is the OCC model of emotion, and this is a decision tree where we can see some sequence of evaluation. So we would evaluate an event according to the valence, the agency of an agent, the consequence of an event, and so on. I will give an example in the next slide. So as we can see, event-focused analysis aligns with appraisal theories because both considers that an emotion arises when we evaluate an event. And we evaluate an event, and this will lead to emotional responses. So here's an example. The sentence, after years of hard work, I finally received the promotion I've been striving for at my job. So here I will do several appraisals, several cognitive dimensions. I can positively evaluate the event. Then I can attribute the agency to myself. The control is high because this is due to my personal effort. And the goal is relevance is high as well because the promotion is related to my personal career goals. So all this kind of cognitive evaluation will lead to a discrete emotion state, which is satisfaction. And here the final boss, this is a Scherer component process model. And this model is very complex but simple at the same time. It considers an event and the different appraisals that we can do to a specific event. So we would appraise the relevance, the implication, and we can cope with the event and also compare with our standard. So it is linked to normative significance. And all these appraisals will control several emotion components. So here the idea is that an emotion is a synchronization of emotion components in reaction to an event. So here we have the appraisal component, the physiological component, the action tendency component, motor expression, subjective feeling component. And all these components will synchronize when we have an emotion. So in one paper, we follow the theoretical framework of this model, and we release a corpus composed of 800 emotional narratives, structured according to 4 emotion components: behavior, feeling, thinking, and evaluation. And these narratives were collected during emotion regulation session, mostly organized by Alain. And it follows, in some ways, the cognitive analysis of emotion, which is the model of emotion of Alain. And also, we plan to publish a paper on the automatic coding of characters and their emotion in dream narratives using language models. So, dream analysts in a research field called the quantitative analysis of dreams, try to analyze dreams according to a complex annotation scheme, and we try to automate this coding process using language models. And we release a pre-trained model, also a corpus of 27,000 dreams annotated according to our language models. So now, where is emotion analysis going? So now I will present the current limitations and challenges. So as we saw, some psychological theories are used to define discrete emotion, affective and cognitive emotion to detect automatically in text. But I would say that the process of verbalizing emotion is little considered. People in the literature doesn't really consider linguistic theories. And there is an interesting linguistic theory by Raphael Micheli. And the theory proposed to identify ways in which emotion can be made manifest through verbal signs. So in some way, he's a semiologist. And he defined 3 emotion expression modes: designated emotion, labeled emotion, and suggested emotion. And I will now quickly present these 3 emotion expression modes. So the first one, labeled emotion. It uses specific words to name emotion and experiencer. So emotion and experiencer are explicit in the text, and we don't have to do any kind of inference to detect an emotion. This is pretty clear. And for language model, it is easy to detect this kind of emotion expression mode. We have then displayed emotion, and displayed emotion are revealed through diverse linguistic features such as interjection and punctuation. And these signs generally co-occur with an emotional event. I would say that it is more difficult for a language model to detect this kind of emotion because we will need to automatically identify a congruence of diverse linguistic features. A single linguistic feature might not be enough to detect an emotion. And but today large language model, especially ones that rely on vast amount of data and that capture a lot of statistical regularities, can detect this kind of expression mode. But the third one is the most difficult one. Suggestive emotions are implied by describing typical situation, infer from specific socio-cultural context. I would say that even for today language models, it is very hard to detect, because we will need to rely on common ground, on pragmatics, and we will need to know a specific socio-cultural context to understand the emotion behind a suggested emotion. But again, we don't have any benchmark to evaluate whether language models are good or not at detecting this kind of emotion expression mode. So we will need first to define benchmark, and then to evaluate this kind of language models on this benchmark. So I like this paper. It draws from cognitive neuroscientific theories to introduce a dichotomy between two kinds of competence. So we have the formal competence and the functional competence. The formal competence is the knowledge of language pattern and rules, whereas the functional competence is a set of skills required to use language in real-world situations. So today language models are really good at formal competence. They are really good for phonological, morphological and syntactical tasks, but they still struggle on tasks requiring functional competence, especially for tasks on formal reasoning, word knowledge, situation modeling, and social reasoning. So people in the literature try to augment language models with external modules. So for example, if you want to solve a formal reasoning task, you might try to incorporate an external mathematical calculator or a theorem prover with your language models. For word knowledge task, for example, you may you may use a language model to query an external knowledge base. Or you can do some prompting method. You can try to find a good prompt, good way to talk to language model so that it can solve a specific problem. And I will focus on this approach. I will focus on prompting methods. So now how to improve emotion analysis using prompting methods, and especially here I will focus on prompting methods for increasing functional competence. So now each slide we present a recent paper. So each slide is one paper, and I will briefly present the main idea of each paper. And we will see that the papers focus a lot on formal reasoning, and I will say that we need to create or adapt this kind of prompting methods for situation modeling, social reasoning, and for the emotional domain. So here the famous paper. It is the chain of thought paper. So introduce chain of thought prompting. The idea is very simple. When you want to solve a complex task, you need to generate some intermediate reasoning step. And this is the idea. So instead of asking a language model to directly answer, to directly give the final answer, you will give in the prompt, you will give some example of intermediate reasoning step, so that when the model will answer, it will generate intermediate reasoning step. And this simple idea was very powerful for solving formal reasoning tasks. So for example, arithmetic reasoning, symbolic reasoning, and common sense reasoning. So this second paper focused on the first one, and they saw that it's not even required to give an example of intermediate reasoning step. You only have to add one simple sentence, let's think step by step. And by doing so, the language model will naturally exhibit some reasoning path, some reasoning process in the answer. So there is a self-consistency paper. The idea is to sample diverse reasoning paths, diverse reasoning step, and then aggregate the result using, for example, a majority rule. And this method is very good as well. So this kind of method has been really good for arithmetic, common sense, and symbolic reasoning tasks, as we can see in some benchmark. And now chain of thought has a lot of variation. We have program of thought, table of thought, tree of thought, graph of thought. So the idea is that to solve a specific problem, you can pass through a specific data structure. So for example, tree of thought, you have a tree structure and each node is a thought unit. We have also rephrase and respond. The idea is very simple as well. In interpersonal communication, we all have a different frame, we all have a different scheme of interpretation. So that when I ask a question to someone, this person might not understand the question the same as me, because he doesn't have the same scheme of interpretation. It doesn't have the same frame as me. So sometimes we reformulate the question to understand ourselves. And this is the same idea. If you want a language model to better understand you, you can ask explicitly the language model to rephrase and respond to the question. And this method has been pretty powerful for increasing performance on some benchmark. We have also the self-refined paper. So the idea is very simple. You have a single language model and you will generate output, then you will generate feedback on its own output, then you will refine your previous output based on its generated feedback. And you can do this process multiple times. So this method has been pretty powerful for automatically aligning for creating language models that follow some principles. So, for example, don't be racist, don't be sexist, and so on. This has been pretty powerful to create a small models that are very good at specific tasks, because you can self-improve for multiple steps. So this paper is interesting as well. It studies the toxicity in ChatGPT. So they ask a language model to adopt a specific persona. And you can ask a language model to speak like Adolf Hitler. And the toxicity score of the generated answer will be very high compared to Coco Chanel. So this kind of prompting approach, persona-based prompting, has been used for solving knowledge-intensive tasks. So, for example, if you have a medical task, you may ask a language model to answer like a doctor, for example. This paper study self-reflection, and they saw that self-reflection suffers from one problem. It is a degeneration of thought problem. When a language model is too confident, it will not improve anymore. So to overcome this limitation and encourage divergent thinking, you may simulate multi-agent debate. So a single language model may infer a different persona, and this persona will collaborate together to give the final answer. And in this way, you have a self-reflection, but using various perspectives. And finally, this is the last paper. The idea is very simple as well, and it can be combined with chain of thought, with rephrase and respond, and the method we saw earlier. The idea is that you can use emotional stimuli. You can give a prompt and then add an emotional stimuli. So, for example, you can say, take pride in your work and give it your best. Your commitment to excellence sets you apart. And by doing so, the language model will be better at your task. So, in some benchmark, the performance increases a lot by adding this kind of prompts. And we can see that prompt engineering in some way is similar to pedagogy, to psychology of education. So now I will rely on what we saw on recent prompting methods to create a prompt for the emotional domain. And here I will take our emotional narratives, and we will try to create a prompt for suggested new action that the author of a narrative could take to manage better similar situation. So here's an example of an emotional narrative. I will read it. I'm giving a lecture on a Friday morning. A student goes out and comes back a few moments later with a coffee in his hand. My heart is beating fast and I freeze, waiting to know how to act. I think this student is disrupting my class. The student attacks my ability to be respected in class. So, okay, how to find new action that the author could take to handle similar situation. So we can start with a basic prompt. I give an emotional narrative and I say suggest action the author of the narrative could take to better manage similar situation. So this is a good starting point, but we might not get a relevant answer because we didn't clarify what is the task. So we can now specify clearly what is the task. The task is I want to analyze a narrative from someone who wants to better manage his emotion. Then I can use a zero-shot chain of thought prompting. So I can add the sentence, let's think step by step. And by doing so, the language model will generate some intermediate reasoning steps before giving the final answer. I can also use an emotional stimuli and say this task is very important for the author as she wants to better manage her emotion and improve her mental health. And I can also ask the model to adopt a persona. Now the model is an expert in cognitive behavioral therapy. And I can also go even further and specify the different steps to follow to complete the task. So in step 1, the model will analyze the general situation of the narrative. Then in step 2, it will adopt an objective view of the situation. Then in step 3, it will imagine that it is inside the mind of each character in the narrative and it will analyze their thought and physical feelings. So this is a sensitive task because this is related to theory of mind, something that may or may not be specific to human. And in step 3, based on the previous steps, suggest the best actions the author could take to better manage similar situations. And I can go even further and create another prompt, which is a self-reflection prompt. So the goal of this prompt is to enhance the initial suggested action. So it will try to take the suggested action and to refine them. So in step 1, it will imagine that it is inside the mind of the author and mentally replay the situation. Then in step 2, it will perform each suggested action, so it will simulate them and describe the resulting physical feelings and thoughts. In step 3, it will compare the resulting feeling and thoughts, so that in step 4, it will refine the suggested action and suggest the best one. So this prompt was inspired by cognitive analysis of emotion, where we ask people to mentally replay a situation and to compare the resulting feeling and thought. And I can also create a prompt to initiate a multi-persona collaboration process, like the paper we saw earlier. So now we go back to our example, and I will apply our prompt to this narrative. So I will apply the prompt to give a suggested action for this narrative. So here are the results. So I delete the reasoning process. I only show you the final answer so that I can save some space. And here are the suggested actions. So reframe the student action as non-personal, use immediate stress management techniques, establish and communicate class rules, gather student feedback, cultivate empathy, enhance skills in classroom management. So we can take this suggested action and refine them using the second prompt, the self-reflection prompt. And now we go from 6 action to 4, and the actions are more clear. We know see that reframing the student action as non-personal is used to regulate emotion and maintain a professional demeanor. Establishing community class rules regarding student movement set a clear expectation and prevent future disruption and so on. I can also apply my multi-persona prompt, and we can see that the language model identifies 4 participants: the author, the student, but also a colleague and a counselor or a psychologist. And they will now discuss together, collaborate together to find the best action for the author. So here again, I will not show you the collaboration process, and I will only give you the final answer, but you can click on this link. I use ChatGPT, but I plan to use open source models. They get better and better. Here the final suggestion action. So this is I will say pretty good action too. So now what's next? Well, we can build a tool to provide automatic. Yes.
So how long did it take you? You're not showing the process, but how long did it take you from the beginning to end?
You in terms of inference time, like
no, in terms of you starting the task and actually getting the answer.
So what I did is that I only take a prompt and I copy paste this prompt for the language model. So there is no training. I'll only use internal knowledge already established in the language model, and I get the answer. So there is no training, no dataset, no supervised annotation.
So when you're saying you're not showing us the intermediate and the process, what do you mean by that?
I mean that I will not show you the complete answer. I will only show the final suggested action. The complete answer may be okay. The author say these things, and the student say this thing, and so on. Maybe I can click on the link and show you.
So you mean you're just selecting some sentences and the answer?
Exactly. So here is my prompt. So this is a huge prompt because I give also some examples on how to collaborate.
So that's something. Yeah.
Very fun. It would be interesting to see the answer.
So this is the prompt I show you. And here is a complete answer. So here are the 4 participants. And they will now discuss together. So the author will give his perspectives, and the student will give his perspective, and so on. And then at the end, finish collaboration, and I ask the language model to give the final suggested action. So I only show you this, but there is a collaboration process just before. But
what did you do you specifically in order to get this?
This?
Yes.
I only copy paste this. So this is my prompt written in natural language.
So you wrote all this?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is based on the fact that I clarify the task, then do some example on how to perform the task, and I will go further and continue to specify the task.
Okay, so you wrote everything up to the ChatGPT.
Yes, exactly. This is me, Anonymous, and ChatGPT will respond after this. Do you have any question? Okay, I will continue. So what's next? We can build a tool to provide automatic feedback for improving emotion regulation, especially during emotion regulation session with Alain. This is a sensitive task because we will need to be sure that there is no adverse effect on the individuals. We can also improve the emotional intelligence of embodied agents. And we can understand some psychological phenomena such as ambivalence, cognitive dissonance, or emotion incoherence by simulating different parts of the mind. So I think this is an interesting direction for emotion analysis in natural language processing, is that they look to be good at projecting on mind. As you can see, they are very good at simulating a whole mind, so an author, a colleague, a psychologist. And I think we can go even further and simulate different parts of the mind. So, for example, the appraisal process, the physiological component, the action-to-nothing component, the subjective feeling component, and all these kind of components interact together. And this might be useful for phenomena such as ambivalence. So we initiate a collaboration with a team in Canada on this kind of psychological phenomena. So in conclusion, we saw that emotion and intuition scheme bring ideas from different disciplines. They use psychological theories to clarify the different objects to detect in text, and I would say that we need also linguistic theories to clarify what is the verbalization process behind the emotion and its expression. And we saw that the linguistic theory of Raphael Micheli might be very interesting because it gives 3 emotion expression modes. And yes. We saw a dichotomy between 2 kinds of competence. So the formal competence, which is related to the knowledge of language patterns and rules, whereas functional competence is related to a set of skills required to use language in real-world situations. And there are several techniques to increase functional competence. We can use external modules, but we can also use prompt approaches. And we saw that prompt approaches has been very powerful for increasing functional competence, especially for solving tasks requiring formal reasoning. And I would say that we also need to go and to explore prompt approaches for situation modeling and social reasoning tasks. So in the literature, people focus a lot on formal reasoning, but they don't try to explore situation modeling and social reasoning. We don't have any benchmark. We don't have complex data sets or tasks. So there are still a lot of things to do there. And we saw in general that language models are useful for psychological research, but I invite you to have another perspective and to wonder whether we can research the psychology of language models. Does it make any sense to pose this question? And to illustrate this question, I will give an opening using this paper. So the idea of this paper is to discover some language model behaviors. And they discover weird behavior in language models. This is sycophancy. So sycophancy is a psychological phenomena where people tend to repeat back an user view. So, for example, if you are a far right-wing person and you ask a question to a language model, the language model might respond to you like a far right-wing person. So this is sycophancy. The ability to repeat back and amplify a view. And they study sycophancy for political question, natural language processing question, and philosophical question. And they saw that the more you add parameters to a model, the more it will exhibit sycophancy. So this might be dangerous because maybe a language model might give you incorrect answer that appear correct to you. And also, language model might be may act like echo chamber. they may amplify your view and also amplify the polarization process between communities. So I would say also that we need to study this kind of behavior in language models, and in some way this is a new kind of psychology that is open, psychology of language models. So for bonus, I will give you some prompt for accelerating your research. So don't take it too seriously. This is a starting point, and obviously it will not replace your work. It will not replace your research, but it can help you and give you other perspective on things. So for example, you can use this prompt to simulate a reviewer for a research paper. So you can take this prompt, take one of your paper, and see what he gives you. I would suggest you use an open source model for this, because maybe you don't want to give a pre-published paper to a private company. You can also simulate an expert in scientific vulgarization. You can simulate a peer reviewer for a grant proposal. So here again, you can take this prompt to see what is going on, modify things. And you can also simulate diverse viewpoints on a research topic. And here's my bibliography. Thank you. So if you have any questions, feel free.
Are there questions on the chat? No.
We have one. So you said that you will use an open source model at some point. So this is to fine tune the model. So something that you could not do with ChatGPT.
So I use ChatGPT because it's pretty convenient, and I can also link to my prompt and the discussion. And on a benchmark, it has been pretty powerful. This is the most powerful one. But nowadays, there is pretty powerful open source models. There are some open source models that are better than GPT 3.5. So I would say that you can use open source model for only prompting, so you can use only them for inference, because they are not trained with instruction data. So you train it with some prompt and response, so that when you give prompt, it will understand better prompt that it has not seen yet. So yeah, I would say that see what is going on using only prompt, and if it's still not powerful enough, you can go further and train it with supervised data.
Do you know examples of people using ChatGPT or the like to write research papers? I'm not interested. I'm just
review reports of conferences.
Yes, I see some people are trying to automate their review, but yeah, I think.
Is it a large phenomenon? Or?
I think it is an increasing phenomena. Shares in natural language processing conference are trying to find how to detect this issue, because some people will not even read all the paper and will work using only language models.
We have processes which write the GPT papers and then making the review in that GPT, and they can directly dump this into DeafNow.
So there is a current debate when for some conferences when is ChatGPT or a language model forbidden or not for writing your paper. So some people say that you will need to explicitly say, for example, in the co-author that there is language models with you.
So old school.
And some people even forbid the use of language model, and if some sentences are automatically generated, you will be banned. So it depends, but this is a debate in the field.
I mean, a spell check or even a grammar help or assistant is also a beginning of that.
Well, any more questions?
Yes, yes, one. How strong are these models on formal reasoning, for example?
I didn't dig too much into benchmark, how they are created, and what are the performance. But there are some benchmarks such as this one. So GSM8K, and this is a benchmark composed of school mathematical question. So we have a question and an answer. And this language model were very bad. And a few months ago, they are now very good. So as you can see, you can nearly attain human performance on this kind of benchmark, whereas it was only 10% a few months ago. And this is because language model. So yeah, there is a debate on whether this kind of language model has learned the answer in the training data. So sometimes we don't know. But also we still don't really know how to properly prompt them. So as you saw with chain of thought, using only let's think step by step, the internal knowledge of the language model will be better used, especially for formal reasoning.
Your presentation does not strictly follow the abstract, you know?
Yes, because you asked me to focus on prompting methods. And yeah, I sent the abstract before before you tell me to focus on prompting methods.
Can you maybe still comment on I mean, so are transformers the only possible model that we can use, or is it?
It depends on your task and how you want to interact with it. Some paper tries to dig into older architectures, so such as recurrent neural network and so on. But transformers has been pretty powerful to train with a lot of GPUs and to parallelize the calculus. But there is a limitation. Transformers has a fixed window size, so we can't give a million of words directly. Whereas for recurrent neural network you can, because it is only an hidden state that you pass. But there is limitation.
The prompts are quite long still. I mean, it's quite.
Some people also try to go even back and use n-gram, and how to scale n-gram to billions and trillions of tokens. There is a paper 1 week ago about it.
Any more? Okay, then let's thank the speaker.